G'day, it's fugitive Australian journalist Shane Delling from the website and YouTube channel Kangaroo Court of Australia. Now, we're about to take a very close look at Rupert Murdoch and Lachlan Murdoch's News Corp and how they operate. And I've got video of Lachlan Murdoch admitting how he contacts the editors and makes sure they've got the proper message. And also a video of former journalist Anthony Clean admitting how News Corp works, how their scam works. And actually Anthony Clean is running the exact same scheme now, claiming he's an independent journalist. We also got a transcript of Rick Morton, a talk that he gave, admitting how News Corp operates, and he was shown the door not long after, back in 2019. And this is very important because we all know how News Corp influenced ABC and other media. They'll have their columnists and journalists on the various ABC programs like Q&A and Insiders, and also the Breakfast Radio and the Breakfast TV, and then the Breakfast TV and radio will talk about the headlines in the News Corp papers, as well as other papers, but News Corp papers pushing their propaganda for them. But News Corp are now influencing independent journalists, or so-called independent journalists, and also social media. And they're doing it in a manner where people don't realise it's happening. And a prime example is Anthony Clean. There's others doing it and have done in the past and will do in the future, but he's the example we're using because I know him well. I know how he's running his scheme well. Anyhow, let's get into the article. Now, I published an article on Sunday, the 29th of September, 2024, and it's titled, Lachlan Murdoch Explains How News Corp's Lies and Deception Works, with help from Rick Morton and Anthony Clean. And it starts off, Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch control News Corp and Fox News, are well known for being propaganda businesses, masquerading as news businesses, but having that in effect said by Lachlan Murdoch and two of his former journalists has a lot more power than others saying it. In the below article and videos, you'll see Lachlan Murdoch on video talking about how he controls the positioning and messaging of the news at News Corp and Fox. You'll also read what former News Corp journalist at the Australian, Rick Morton, said about News Corp in 2019, which ended his career at the company within days. There's also video of former News Corp journalist at the Australian, Anthony Clean, talking about how News Corp manipulate the media and readers. What is interesting is that Anthony Clean is using the same News Corp strategy now in a financial fraud scheme, trying to control the narrative and profit from his reporting on the NAC robo-debt scandal. With the federal election coming up, it's worth having a look at not only how News Corp operate, but also how they influence new media, independent journalists and social media. We often read and hear about News Corp infiltrating and influencing the ABC and other media, but the News Corp culture and tactics is also infiltrating independent media and will continue to do so given thousands of journalists were trained by Murdoch's News Corp. So it is up to us to be aware of News Corp's expanding influence and deal with it when need be. Lachlan Murdoch, he is Executive Chairman of Nova Entertainment, Chairman of News Corp, and Executive Chairman and CEO of Fox Corporation. In 2023, he was listed as 33rd on the list of Australia's wealthiest people, with his wealth estimated to be 3.35 billion Australian dollars. As of September 2024, the Murdoch family is involved in a court case in the US in which Lachlan's brother, James, his sister, Elizabeth, and half-sister, Prudence, are challenging their father's bid to amend the family trust to ensure Lachlan retains control of News Corp and Fox Corp. In January 2023, I published an article titled, Lachlan Murdoch's Big Mouth Set to Cost Rupert Murdoch, Fox and himself billions in the Dominion defamation case, which has a video of Lachlan Murdoch being interviewed at the New York Times Deal Book Conference in November 2018. I said in the article in relation to the video, one of Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch's defences from any personal liability in the court cases is that in their management roles, they do not tell journalists what to say. But in the video I'm about to show you, Lachlan Murdoch says that he works closely with the managers of those newsrooms, and it's important they get the positioning and the messaging right. Those managers would be the editors who work directly with the journalists, overseeing what the journalists write. So Lachlan, by his own admission, is only one step away from directly telling the journalists what to write. Lachlan also says he works closely with the managers of the newspapers. So why doesn't Lachlan leave it to the managers of the newspapers to work closely with the editors? Why does Lachlan override the managers of the newspapers and give direct instructions to the editors? It's because Lachlan and Rupert want to give direct instructions on what is and isn't written or said because they are running a propaganda business masquerading as a news business. That is proven by Lachlan's line where he says, and it's important they get the positioning and the messaging right. A news business reports the news, so they don't need to worry about positioning and getting the messaging right. Lachlan says we don't always get it right. Well, they would get it right if they focus on reporting the news, not worrying about the positioning and getting the messaging right for Rupert and Lachlan's propaganda. In the video, one person asking a question points out that Lachlan Murdoch told the audience he is left-leaning, which is a blatant lie. Lachlan is not left or right. He's a criminal who says anything to make a dollar. Lachlan says at the end of the video, we have to get along and be more tolerant of others. Yet it's Lachlan and his father Rupert who sell and promote hate and division via their media. Like most criminals, Lachlan Murdoch is not overly bright. He just has a lot of money, which gives him access to a lot of advisors and speechwriters. So in public, he generally doesn't seem as stupid as he really is. The video I'm about to play is Lachlan Murdoch being interviewed at the New York Times Deal Book Conference in November 2018.
I'm Ken Aletta, of course, from The New Yorker. Hi, Ken.
You mentioned that you were a social liberal, or to the left on social issues. You also extolled the word empathy. Yet if you watch the primetime programming on Fox News, it's the opposite of that. Empathy is not championed, and they're socially very conservative. Do you plan to make any changes in that, since you have strong views on these things?
Look, I do have strong views on these things, and I think Ken, and you know this because you know our companies very well. You know, I've run newspapers since I was 21 or 22 years old. You know, I don't, and it's a practice I've had. I know it's a standard practice. It should be if it isn't, but I think it is a standard practice in almost every newsroom, certainly in the Western world. I don't tell journalists what to say or what to write. That's not my role. What I do running a media organization is obviously, you know, work closely with the managers of those newsrooms and with the managers of those newspapers. And it's important that they get the positioning and the messaging right. We don't always get it right. And we have to call ourselves out on that one when we make a mistake.
Tell them what to do, but are you embarrassed by what they do?
No, I'm not embarrassed by what they do at all. You have to understand that Fox News is the only mass media company in America, in this country, with conservative opinion, with strong conservative opinion in prime time. It's the only one, right? It's not one of a few, it's the only one. And I frankly feel in this country, we all have to be more tolerant of each other's views. And that goes for everyone in this room, everyone in this country, everyone on both coasts and in the middle. And that's the problem. We've come to this point where we are more and more intolerant of each other, and frankly, that just has to change. So, thank you for the question.
Lachlan Murdoch, thank you for your candor, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Rick Morton, former News Corp journalist at the Australian. Rick Morton's career at News Corp ended after he gave a talk on the 8th of May 2019 to journalism students at the University of Technology in Sydney. The talk was published as a podcast on UTS, and there's a link in the article where you can listen to the whole podcast if you want. The Guardian reported on the 10th of May 2019, News Corp journalist has gone on the record with critical remarks about his own paper, The Australian, saying the craziness has been dialed up in recent months. The paper's social affairs writer, Rick Morton, told journalism students at the University of Technology in Sydney that senior writers know what the editorial line is and write stories to fit. Asked whether the Murdoch paper's journalists are uncomfortable with Australian barracking for the coalition in the election, Morton said they were more uncomfortable certainly now than at any time I've been there in the past 7 years. There is a real mood that something has gone wrong, he said. People will tell you, going back a decade, it used to be a very great paper, and in many ways it still is, but some of the craziness has been dialed up. We know what the empire is, we know what the papers do, but something has changed in the last 6 months. I don't know what it is, death rattles or loss of confidence, and journos pretty much spend all day talking about it. Morton said editors did not give explicit instructions, but senior writers wrote within the accepted parameters or found stories that were so good the paper had to run them, despite their slant. We're trying to know what the editorial line is at the paper, he said. The people at the top know what it is, and there are key staff who are old enough and ugly enough to deal with the awful truth that occasionally there is a line that will come out of a news conference. It's not always Murdoch's line. It's just that Murdoch hires editors that are very much like him. Morton said orders did not come from Murdoch directly, except when he was in Australia, and then he will tell you what interests him. If you're senior, you'll know what the line is roughly, and you'll file stuff that fits. Everyone else is just left to their own devices. Reporters were often confronted with their copy being changed and inaccurate headlines on their stories, he said. Oftentimes, the headline bears no resemblance to the story filed, he said. I've seen it happen to other journalists who wake up in the morning and the copy has changed, or the headline is screaming with something they didn't write. Morton said front page stories were spiked if they didn't fit the tone of the paper's election coverage. It's a constant battle. It doesn't happen as often as people think it does, but it does happen. It's a moral quandary that I've wrestled with for the entire 7 years I've been at the Oz. Am I lending credibility to a horrible machine? I don't know. Does my journalism change things in people's lives for the better? That I do know. Now, Rick Morton gave that talk on the 10th of May 2019. An Australian Financial Review reported on the 18th of May 2019, 8 days later, was the last time the Australian published any articles by Rick Morton. Lachlan and Rupert Murdoch obviously have glass jaws and can't handle the truth. Rick Morton now works at the Saturday paper, and I wrote about him having a fallout with another journalist over ethics in an article titled Robodebt Crook Renee Leon organises free promotion and defence from our friend Chris Wallace in the Saturday paper, published on the 26th of September 2024. Anthony Clan, former News Corp journalist at the Australian, published an article about Clan on the 12th of September 2024 titled Independent Journalists Anthony Clan, Michelle Fay and Elizabeth Minter running a scheme with their dodgy reporting on the NAC Robodebt scandal. In the article, I accused Anthony Clan of suppressing key evidence of the National Anti-Corruption Commission Robodebt cover-up from his audience so they could try to control the narrative of the story to make it look like he was the hero journalist exposing the key evidence. We also accused Clan of reporting lies and stealing content from me and likely others. As you will see in the video I'm about to play, Clan says News Corp uses suppressing information from the public as a strategy, which Clan has also been doing recently. The 12th of September article on Clan's corruption and lies and my ongoing investigation into his handiwork led to this article. Anthony Clan worked for News Corp for 14 to 15 years. He used both at various times, from 2005 to 2019, and tweeted on the 10th of June 2019 that he had resigned from News Corp's Australian the previous month, which is about the same time Rick Morton left the Australian. Clan said in the message regarding his resignation from News Corp, "Hi all, a month ago I resigned from the Australian after 15 years. I had and have serious misgivings about the direction that is now being taken. Australia faces unprecedented external threats. To do otherwise, I felt, would be treasonous." Clan also tweeted on the 24th of May 2024 the below message, which I'm about to read out. 5 years ago, I resigned from my 14-year role, which I adored, at the Australian newspaper. I did so because it had been thoroughly corrupted by bad actors seeking to line their own pockets with a few dollars at the expense of the nation. Treason only grown. 5 years after leaving News Corp's Australian, Anthony Clan said in the message he adored his 14 years there. What did he adore? The lying to the public, the deceiving the public, the undermining of democracy, being in the pockets of lobbyists, of the minerals, the mining, the gas and the big banks. In 2019, when Anthony Clan left News Corp, he said it was because it would be treasonous to stay, and he had serious misgivings about the direction that is now being taken, but now he's saying he adored being there. Most liars don't have good memories and forget what previous lies they told. Why Clan left News Corp is something we will probably never know, but it certainly wasn't because of ethical reasons. The video I'm about to play is from an interview Anthony Clan did on Al Jazeera TV in 2020, and I'll show you the video now.
Corporations always held onto a narrative in being contrarian, which is something that attracted me in the first place to the organisation. But when that's used as a mask for pushing vested interests, then it's an entirely different story. Never seen anything like this in the last 2 years, nothing at all. Basically, all the worst excesses that had been around for years were magnified and undiluted. Our former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd is known a little bit for hyperbole, but if you have a major media corporation that's suppressing information from the public so that the public can't make informed decisions, then he's right. It has become a cancer on democracy.
The problem for Australia, though, is that we just have so few voices that various takeovers have been allowed to happen in what's a relatively small market, and now we're reaping what we've sown. We do have some countervailing forces, like we have a very well-funded public broadcaster, but basically News Corporation, because of its reach to so many cities, the national newspaper, the main 24-hour news channel, it has extraordinary clout in Australian politics.
When I started at the organisation, I believed it was 90% ideology at least. But now I've come to the opinion it's 10% ideology, the rest of it's money and vested interest. It's incredibly in the pockets of the lobbyists of the minerals, of the mining, the gas, and of the big banks. The News Corporation's response to climate change and coronavirus, one of the biggest threats of our generation, was extraordinarily similar. It was sort of denial, it's not happening, talking it down, excuses. I was just amazed.
Clan says in the video, when I started at the organisation, I believed it was 90% ideology, at least, but now I've come to the opinion it's 10% ideology, and the rest of it is money and vested interest. Clan also says News Corp are suppressing information from the public and is incredibly in the pocket of the lobbyists, of the minerals, the mining, the gas, and of the big banks. Anthony Clan's lies and deception. Anthony Clan spent 15 years lying and deceiving the public and suppressing information from the public on behalf of News Corp, yet he wants us to believe, when I started at the organisation, I believed it was 90% ideology at least, but now I've come to the opinion it's 10% ideology, and the rest of it is money and vested interests. Clan also says News Corp is incredibly in the pocket of lobbyists, the minerals, the mining, the gas, and of the big banks, but has been like that for decades, and certainly for the whole 15 years Clan worked at News Corp. News Corp was the same in the 1970s, The Guardian reported in May 2019. After the dismissal of Gulf Whitlam's Labor government in 1975, the Australian journalists went on strike during the subsequent election campaign over what they saw as the newspaper's biased coverage. Kevin Rudd's 2010 super profits mining tax cost him the prime ministership, and the loudest critic was News Corp, who were and still are getting paid millions by the mining companies for advertising. But apparently Anthony Clan didn't notice that. Why didn't Anthony Clan say in 2010 or 2011 that News Corp was incredibly in the pocket of the lobbyists, of the minerals, the mining, the gas, and of the big banks? Because Anthony Clan was also in the pockets of the lobbyists, of the minerals, the mining, the gas, and the big banks by his weekly paycheck from News Corp. And Anthony Clan stayed in their pockets for another 8 years after the mining companies, with the help of News Corp, got rid of Rudd. So no, Anthony Clan is not a whistleblower on News Corp corruption. Clan is a long-term crook who left News Corp for an unknown reason, who is now trying to cleanse his reputation by ratting on his fellow crooks at News Corp. But Anthony Clan has already been called out recently, trying to use the News Corp business tactics. He learnt and used it at News Corp for 15 years in his own small media business. News Corp's influence on independent media and journalists. Anthony Clan isn't the first and won't be the last journalist to leave News Corp and continue with a life of crime and corruption. There are and will be many other ex-News Corp journalists and journalists from other media companies who will claim to be independent journalists, but will lie and deceive just as much as the Murdochs do, as they try to build their profile and small media business. So keep an eye out. I never came up with the phrase the Murdochs are running a propaganda operation masquerading as a news service. University of Melbourne academic Dennis Muller used the phrase in an article for The Conversation, which means even university students are now learning about what News Corp really is. I could say a lot more, but the Murdochs and News Corp's influence on independent media and journalists will grow and needs to be reported on a regular basis to try and keep it in check. So I'll save further comment for another article in the future. Rupert Murdoch, Lachlan Murdoch and News Corp and Fox News have infiltrated other media like the ABC, and they have that other media pushing their propaganda for them. And they're going to do the same with social media, independent journalists, small independent media. They've already been doing it for years, but it's never been highlighted by others, and it needs to be highlighted, and it needs to have a light shone on it. Some of those journalists, without a doubt, would be getting kickbacks from News Corp, but it might just be quid pro quo, you know. They look after Murdochs, and the Murdochs will look after them by giving them some free publicity in their newspapers or Sky News, etc. Like I said, this is going to be an ongoing issue. The News Corp corruption method, ideology, infiltrating social media, independent media. So keep on writing articles about this and doing other videos. Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media. I publish a website and a YouTube channel. And I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself. So please support my Patreon account or PayPal account. We currently have 461 patrons. And I estimate I need 600 patrons to become financially viable. So please support that. You can donate any amount, $3, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50 a month, whatever suits your budget. All helps out in a big way. And the link for the Patreon account and PayPal account will be below this video on YouTube and also on my website. And please share this video on social media. And please hit the like and subscribe button. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.